Hello, welcome to lesson 14.1C. I've entitled this video, The Soviet Union and Japan. This video is going to cover pages 852 to 854. Strong leaders in the Soviet Union and Japan. Totalitarian leaders also came to power in the Soviet Union and Japan. Unlike those in Italy and Germany, however, these leaders were not fascist, but they did seek complete control. They were unhappy with the terms of the Treaty of Versailles and hoped to bring new glory to their nations. As in Western Europe, the political changes underway in these regions drew the world closer to war. Totalitarianism in the Soviet Union. Vladimir Lenin set up a communist government in the Soviet Union. After Lenin's death in 1924, Joseph Stalin gained power. Stalin ruled as a totalitarian dictator. In a totalitarian state, a single party controls the government and every aspect of people's lives. Citizens must obey the government without question. Criticism of the government is severely punished. Stalin took brutal measures to modernize and communize Soviet industry and agriculture. He ordered peasants to hand over land and animals to government-run farms. Millions resisted and were executed or exiled to forced labor camps. More than 5 million people starved to death. Stalin also purged, or got rid of, his political enemies. Many confessed to false charges under torture. These people were also killed or sent to labor camps. In all, it is estimated that 20 million or more people perished by the hand of Stalin's ruthless dictatorship. Now we can answer a couple of questions here. Number 37, what type of government had Lenin set up in the Soviet Union? He set up a communist government. 38. When Lenin died in 1924, who took over in the Soviet Union? Joseph Stalin. 39. What is a totalitarian state? That is a single party that controls the government in every aspect of people's lives. Question 40. What were some of the brutal actions that Stalin took in the Soviet Union to modernize and communize the Soviet Union's industry and agriculture? Well, he ordered peasants to hand over their land and animals, and those were sent to government-run farms. Millions of people said, no, we don't like this, and those people were either exiled to labor camps or executed, and over 5 million people starved to death. And now we can answer question number 42. How many people are estimated to have died under the ruthless dictatorship of Joseph Stalin? It's estimated that 20 million or more people died under his cruel dictatorship. And now we're going to take a closer look at Joseph Stalin. He changed his last name to Stalin in the 30s. The word Stalin means steel in Russian. Stalin ordered his people to produce more goods in order to strengthen the country in preparation for war. Farmers were forced to give up their land and to join what were called collective farms. Due to the fact that the Soviet Union lied, altered, and falsified statistics, it is hard to give an exact number on just how many people died under Stalin's reign. Estimates vary, including, however, if famine victims and a minimum around 10 million deaths there, 6 million from famine and 4 million from other causes are attributable to Stalin's rule. Some recent historians suggest the number is probably closer to 20 million, citing much higher victim totals from executions, gulags, deportations, and other causes. Prisoners, this is a picture of prisoners working at Belpatog, a gulag camp for the building at the White Sea, Baltic Sea Canal. So basically these were prison camps where they worked. Here we see once again prisoners working at a gulag. And here we see prisoners mining gold. This is the most notorious gulag camp in extreme northeastern Siberia in Kolmia. If you don't know anything about Siberia, it's extremely cold. Here we see a first-hand account, Life in a Gulag, courtesy of the Efrosini Kursno-Vakak Foundation, Moscow. The arrival at the corrective labor camp turned out to be the culmination of the humiliation. First, we were made to strip naked, and we were shoved into some roofless enclosures made of planks. Above our head, the stars twinkled. Below our bare feet lay frozen excrement. An enclosure measured 3 square feet. Each held 3 to 4 naked, shivering, and frightened men and women. Then these kennel cages were opened one after the other, and the naked people were led across the courtyard, the camp version of a foyer, into a special building where our documents were formulated and our things were searched. The goal of the search was to leave us with rags and to take the good things, sweaters, mittens, socks, scarves, vests, and good shoes for themselves. 10 thieves shamelessly fleeced these destitute and barely alive people. Corrective is something that should make you better, and labor ennobles you. But a camp wasn't a jail, so then what on earth was going on? Here we see a drawing of the camp done by a former Gulag prisoner. A couple questions to ponder. Have you ever been late to school? Well, in the Stalin era, a person who arrived late to work 3 times could be sent to the Gulag for 3 years. Have you ever been told, heard, or watched on television a joke about a government official? Well, in the Stalin era, many were sent to the Gulag for up to 25 years for telling an innocent joke about a Communist Party official. If your family was starving, would you take a few potatoes left in a field after harvest? Well, in the Stalin era, a person could be sent to the Gulag for up to 10 years for such petty thief. Trying to feed her 4 hungry children during the massive 1932-1933 famine, the peasant mother shown here, Maria Techatoreva, allegedly stole 3 pounds of rye from her former field, confiscated by the state as part of collectivization. Soviet authorities sentenced her to 10 years in the Gulag. When her sentence expired in 1943, it was arbitrarily extended until the end of the war in 1945. After her release, she was required to live in exile near her Gulag camp north of the Arctic Circle, and she was not able to return home until 1956, after the death of Stalin. Maria Techatoreva never found her children after her release. Here's a story from Ivan Burlov. Seeking the appearance of democracy, the Soviet Union held elections, but only one Communist Party candidate appeared on the ballot for each office. Fear of punishment ensured that nearly all Soviet citizens, quote, voted by taking their ballot and ceremoniously placing it into a ballot box. In 1949, Ivan Burlov, a beekeeper, protested this absurd ritual by writing the word comedy on his secret ballot. Soviet authorities linked the ballot to Burlov and sentenced him to 8 years in camps for this, quote, crime. Military rule in Japan. Japan's economy suffered severely during the Great Depression. As many Japanese grew impatient with their democratic government, military leaders took power. Like Hitler, these leaders preached racial superiority. They believed that the Japanese were purer than and superior to other Asians as well as non-Asians. The military rulers set out to expand into Asia. In 1931, Japanese forces seized a region in northeastern China known as Manchuria. The region was rich in coal and iron, 2 resources scarce in Japan. The Japanese set up a state of Manchuria called Manchukuo. China called on the League of Nations for help. The League of Nations condemned Japanese aggression, but did little else. The United States refused to recognize Manchukuo, but took no action. So now we can answer a couple of questions. Question number 43. Why was the military able to take power in democratic Japan during the Great Depression? Well, their economy was suffering, and people grew impatient with democracy. And unlike in the United States, where we stuck with democracy, they caved to the power of the military leaders. Question 44. Much like Hitler had done, what did the Japanese leaders preach to the people of Japan? That they were racially superior. They were purer than and superior to other Asians, as well as non-Asians. Question 45. Why did Japan take over Manchuria in 1931? Well, Japan didn't have the resources of coal and iron because it's an island nation. Their resources are limited. They saw these resources in China, in Manchuria, and they wanted them, so they went and they took them. 46. When China asked the League of Nations for help, what did the League of Nations do? Well, we've heard this before in Europe with the way that Italy and Germany behaved. The League of Nations condemned them, but really didn't do anything else. So a slap on the hand is all that they got. The United States remained isolated. In the United States, the strong isolationist mood of the 1920s continued. As war clouds gathered overseas, Americans were determined to keep from becoming involved. In 1935, Congress passed the first of a series of neutrality acts, which banned arms sales or loans to countries at war. Congress also warned Americans not to travel on ships of countries at war. By limiting economic ties with warring nations, isolationists hoped to stay out of any foreign conflict. Question 47. What did the Neutrality Acts of 1935 do? They banned selling arms or giving loans to countries at war. Question 48. What were isolationists hoping America could do during the 1930s? Stay out of foreign conflict. Relations with Latin America. Closer to home, the United States tried to improve relations with Latin American nations. In 1930, President Hoover rejected the Roosevelt Corollary. The United States, he declared, no longer claimed the right to intervene in Latin American affairs. When President Franklin Roosevelt took office in 1933, he also worked to build friendlier relations with Latin America. His good neighbor policy emphasized trade and cooperation. Under this policy, FDR withdrew American troops from Nicaragua and Haiti. Roosevelt also canceled the Platt Amendment, which had limited the independence of Cuba. Roosevelt believed that as world tensions increased, the need to strengthen ties in the Americas became more pressing. On a visit to Argentina, he warned that any foreign aggressor, quote, will find a hemisphere wholly prepared to consult together for our mutual safety. Question number 49. When President Hoover rejected the Roosevelt Corollary, what part of the world was he trying to improve our relations with? That would be Latin America. Question 50. What was President Roosevelt looking to accomplish when he put the good neighbor policy into place? He was looking to improve our relations with Latin America by emphasizing trade and cooperation instead of brute military force. Question 51. What actions was President Roosevelt taking with Latin America during his presidency, and why was he doing that? Well, he was trying to do friendlier things. He canceled the Platt Amendment. He did the good neighbor policy. He was trying to strengthen our ties with the Americas, and the reason for that, his feelings were that as the world was getting more and more closer to perhaps a global conflict, the more friends you can have, the better off and more defended your country will be. Relations with the Soviet Union. President Roosevelt also improved relations with the Soviet Union. He restored diplomatic relations with the Soviet government in 1933, although he remained wary about allying America too closely with the communist nation. In addition to benefiting the American economy, Roosevelt hoped that improved relations with the Soviet Union would discourage Japanese expansion in Asia. Question 52. Even though FDR did not want to become too close with the Soviet Union, why did he look to improve our relations with them? Well, first of all, he wanted to help our economy, but second and more importantly, he was hoping that a better relationship with the Soviet Union would keep Japan from expanding too much in Asia. Well, thank you very much for watching. Before we go, I do have a little bit of a joke for Stalin. An American and a Russian were discussing the merits of Hoover and Stalin. "Hoover is a great man," commented the American, "because he taught people not to drink." "Yes," replied the Russian, "but Stalin taught people not to eat." Oh my. Thank you and have a nice day.